I'm excited to introduce to you Deanna Hoskins, a very close and dear friend of mine. Deanna is the president and CEO of Just Leadership USA. Deanna is a nationally recognized leader and a formerly incarcerated person with experience as an advocate and a policy expert at the local, state, and federal levels. Prior to joining JLUSA as president and CEO, Deanna served as senior policy advisor at the U.S. Department of Justice, managing the Second Chance Act portfolio and serving as deputy director of the Federal Interagency Reentry Council. Before that, she served as county director of reentry in her home state of Ohio. Deanna has always worked alongside advocates who have been impacted by incarceration and knows that setting bold goals and investing in the leadership of directly impacted people is a necessary component of impactful, value-driven reform. Folks, you are in for a treat. My friend, Deanna Hoskins.
Good morning. I'm Deanna Hoskins, President and CEO of Just Leadership USA. Just Leadership is a national organization dedicated to cutting the correctional population in half by 2030. We do this by educating, empowering, and elevating the voices of directly impacted individuals and marginalized communities so that they have the tools and resources necessary to drive policy reform in their community. Just Leadership was founded in 2014 by Glenn E. Martin on the premises that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from resource and power. So it is within our mission and our vision to empower those who have been oppressed by the system. We know on this day, after the remembrance of a powerful giant, John Lewis, that there's some good trouble we can get into today to better tomorrow. And with that, Just Leadership aims to actually break down the structural racism, break down the harmful sentencing guidelines, to break down those actual institutional structural racism elements that have been a delineator of slavery. We know at the abolishment of slavery, the 13th Amendment was instituted, and the 13th Amendment still allows slavery to be legal when in a term of confinement. We also know that prisons started utilizing slave labor. We still have prisons that sit on plantations, such as Angola in Mississippi. And what we see is that not only were all of the slavery laws, the Jim Crow laws of where you could live, where you could work, your voting rights, have been instituted utilizing a criminal background, and that our communities, our Black and brown communities, are over-policed. Our schools are over-policed. We have more armed officers in our elementary schools than we do social workers and counselors. We no longer address the issues of actually addressing children's behaviors. We criminalize any behavior that can be a result of any traumatic experience, and we actually criminalize based on the behavior and not get down to the trauma. So when I was asked to speak and that the topic was clean slate, I had to figure out from a clean slate perspective, what does clean slate mean? Clean slate means the erasing of a past mistake, or the erasing of something. And I remembered being in school and we used blackboards, and the teacher would write the assignments, you would, whatever you were doing, the math problems would be on a blackboard. But when you appeared the next morning, not only was the blackboard erased, it was cleaned. Meaning what had happened yesterday was yesterday and we were on a new day, and that we had a new opportunity to learn something new. We had a new opportunity to change that grade of what we didn't understand. But in society doesn't afford clean slates. Society doesn't allow, even on the onset of completion of the so-called punishment for the behavior, society has instituted double jeopardy by the 46,000 barriers, legal barriers that are in place for an individual to be successful around collateral consequences. So we still face 20 years, after 20 years of a criminal background, after 20 years of actually working hard to get my life together, getting an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's degree, being a homeowner and a landlord, traveling to Indiana, working in the Department of Corrections, working in the governor's office, coming back to my hometown in Ohio that I left, where I was arrested, convicted, and sentenced, and served my time as the highest ranking African-American female in that county to develop their Office of Reentry, going on to DC under the Obama administration as a senior policy advisor, focused on managing the Second Chance portfolio, the National Reentry Resource Center, the National Collateral Consequences Database, children of incarcerated parents, and then stepping into a national role as the president and CEO of this organization. Even with all of that behind me, my criminal record when I go to housing still haunts me. I have been turned down in DC, in New York, for renting an apartment based on a criminal background that is over 20 years old, and I have made substantial changes in my life. With that said, I can only imagine an individual recently released from prison with all intentions of getting their life together. I've never met an individual who was incarcerated, served their time, worked on getting their life together and changing their behavior to come home and tell their friends in prison, hold my stuff, I'll be back. Everyone leaves incarceration with the best intentions to do the best they know how to do. But something stops us when the door starts slamming. Deanna, why is it that even when you were told no, you kept going? Why is it that individuals who are told no seem to actually wither and die because the actual basic human needs are not available to them? So I had to start thinking. And I thought about who I was addressing today and how do I address a correctional minister association. When I know about the Bible, I grew up going to Catholic school, going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. But what I didn't sit and understand was to be able to quote the Bible. So you'll hear me refer to somewhere in the Bible it says, and I know that because my grandmother was a praying grandmother. My mother is a praying mother. My aunt is a praying aunt who prayed over me. And I've become that praying mother for my children and my grandchildren. But I thought about it. What is it that becomes entrenched in a person that no matter what another individual says to them, no matter what an individual tells them they can't do, because all our lives, black and brown people have been told what we can't do. No one stated from a level of positivity of what we could do. Because allowing us to understand what we can do gives us power. So I started thinking about it. And at Just Leadership, we focus on leadership. And everyone, we speak to the leader in everyone we interact. We talk to that leader. And then the question came to me, are leaders made or are leaders born? And I know it's not up to me to define who's a leader. I believe everyone has a leader in them. It just hasn't been exposed. And then I thought about leaders are made out of the things we go through. And I know somewhere in the Bible, it talks about Moses. And God choosing Moses, who was on the run as a criminal, hiding out. His mother had hid him in a basket. All his life, he didn't even know who he was. He struggled with the different cultures that he should relate to because of the way he was raised. And not only that, he had a speech impediment. So if we're looking at leaders to be able to be this voice, to be able to be this speaker of all things, why would God choose someone with a speech impediment? And I believe greatness is pulled out of people based on the challenges and adversities that they struggle with. The trouble you are in or the trouble you try to avoid is the same trouble God uses to draw out your greatness. We show up and people think we're one thing, right? So we show up and people think, oh, Deanna is this. But they really don't know. So, and I like to use this example of incarceration. All your life you've been told you're going to be nothing. You're going to be just like your father, that the negative conversations about your father. You ain't going to graduate high school. You ain't going to go. So you start to live up to the expectations. And when you get to prison or incarceration, everybody is living up to the belief of what's been instilled in them. And it's not, and you're able to fit in because you don't even know who you are. You fit into this world. But faith and belief comes from hearing. So I believe who I am because that's all I heard. So it made me think from a correctional ministerial perspective. And we talk about the Bible and God. But do we talk about what the person has to internalize to operate with the faith of a size of a mustard seed? Because see, the passage says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The operative word that we miss is I. So I have to believe that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And as time goes on, I began to get my own evidence of the power of Christ. You know, people didn't believe they were done until they heard they were done. People didn't believe they were unattractive till they heard they were unattractive. And, you know, and I take it back to a story of growing up in my home, a chubby young girl, and my parents called me Fatty affectionately. No harm meant. But it played a role into who I saw in every mirror that I stepped in. Every time I step into a mirror, I have to actually hold my stomach in. Oh, that's a little bit too much hanging off to the left. Because I had bought into the belief that I was fat. And that fatness in this society was unattractive. I had to find my own self-confidence. I had to believe in myself that no matter what size I am, no matter how big, how small, I am beautiful from within and without. But that was after time of believing in myself and gaining the confidence and no longer living in that low self-confidence of being heavier than most. Your belief is a result of something you heard. Someone else said about you, right? Your life has been fulfilled by the prophecies. People don't even realize they was prophesizing over you. You're going to be no good. You're not going to graduate high school. You can't do nothing. You fat. You unattractive. Those are prophecies that we start to instill in people's DNA. And it's not until people start turning around those curses that have been pronounced over them that they say they can do this. And I had to, so how do we build belief? How do we talk to people not so much about what God does, but what I have to build inside of me, showing them the examples. And this is why I believe just leadership is so important. Because we take people who have experienced the criminal justice system, we take people who have committed murder, sold drugs, drug addiction, sold their body, sold their children, and we actually put them in a position to share their story of transformation, to share their story of how they've come through, even myself. Because when you start to see who you think you are in someone else and their greatness, you start to believe in yourself. When I look at the Bible, and don't know the quotes, so please don't ask me, but when I look at the Bible, there's this cliche that says, God didn't choose the worthy. God chose the broken. God chose the thieves. God chose the prostitutes. God chose the murderers to carry his word, because that was to show the power of his transformation. So it wasn't until I started to see the transformation in how I even view myself. the transformation in what he had did for my life, that my faith became so substance. And even as a mother with children who are going through incarceration today, I struggle being a mother, but I have faith that the same God who had me is the same God who has them. So when I talk about belief, it's those predicaments that you find yourself in, the lowest of the lowest, that he pulls out your greatness. Your predicament does not determine your destiny. So if you walk in your house and your gas and electric off, you tell your house you're a lie, because this I'm better than. When the car gets repossessed, it doesn't determine who you are as a human. Your predicament does not determine your destiny. When you walk in and you open up the refrigerator and there's no food, my predicament doesn't determine my destiny. Because see, had I got caught up in those predicaments of when I was struggling, I wouldn't have never kept moving to get to my destiny and the purpose of what God has for me. Because once I get to purpose and I'm able to step into my purpose, all else doesn't matter. Faith the size of a mustard seed. Faith without works is dead. So I'm wondering, when we're talking from a correctional perspective, what are we pouring into the individuals to which God has placed before us to be the messenger, right? So I need to not share about the fame and the glory that Deanna has. I need to share about the predicament that Deanna was in and how God brought me to my destiny. How that situation of being sitting in a correctional facility stealing because it was a direct result of my drug addiction, that God removed the behavior. The small work was up to me. I had to put in some work. God opened the door and gave me an opportunity, and I ran through. And although there are days when I may lay in a fetal position because I feel it's too hard, then I have to be rose and wake up and remember, the reward for your last challenge is your next challenge. That every time I think it's a challenge, or that something is bothering me, or something is crushing me, it is just the process that God does to get to the principles of his blessing, right? So the crushing is not negative. The crushing is the molding, the making of the next level that he wants to bring me into, to keep me for his principles of his blessings. Because see, I can think I'm blessed with some material things. I can think I'm blessed with a certain salary. And when I get there, I'm not humble enough to remember who gave me my blessings, and it all can go away. But if I actually sit through the crushing and get the blessings that are coming out of the crushing to actually increase my faith, increase my belief in who brought me through this, my blessings are abundance, right? I never forget who gave me my blessing. I never forget who gave me the power as an African-American woman, formerly incarcerated, addicted to crack cocaine, lost custody of her children, went from being an inmate in the local jail to being a colleague in the local jail with a key card. I'll never forget how the woman who was thinking about committing suicide because there was no other way out went from thinking about committing suicide in the cell to being the first formerly incarcerated woman to work at the Department of Justice to manage the Second Chance portfolio up under the first African-American president. See, I can't forget the crushing that got me there. Deanna didn't get me there. It was the crushing of what God did that brought out my greatness. So every time I think I can't do something, I have to remember he has prepared me for a time such as this. And that's what we have to instill in the lives that are in correctional facilities. Society may not give you the clean slate, but God already wiped our slate clean. Society may say there's barriers around employment, but God is moving us that actually those laws that are in place has no place for us. We have to empower the people and stop focusing on the policies. Empower the people to utilize their greatness that has been pulled out of them based on their predicament, to stand in front of lawmakers, to share their story of greatness, to enhance and change hearts and minds, to change policies. No longer do we need to speak for people. People who have been in these predicaments, people who have been incarcerated, people from oppressed communities actually have the power, the voice, and the passion to change. We just need everybody else to take a back seat and allow us to lead this moment. allow us to lead this movement that actually impacts our life. There's a saying, and I'm gonna close with this. Those most oppressed by the system, nothing changes to those most oppressed by the system, rise up into leadership and demand change. History has taught us that. We need history to look at us as human beings. I need everyone watching this to check your own implicit bias of when it comes to incarcerated people, people who have committed a crime, and how we respect and value their leadership in this moment to lead us out of this moment. Enjoy your conference. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you, and I'm hoping next year we can meet in person. But until then, God bless, Godspeed. Thank you.